right, hello everyone. How you doing? So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a kind of incident that occurred over the summer. I'm referring to the cancellation of Mr. Jon Rafman by an anonymous Instagram account called Surviving the Art World. I made a video about, I think the title was something like Cancel Culture Needs a Revolutionary Party. And I expressed some of my views on cancel culture in that video. Cancel culture was a big deal this summer. But I did so in a very coded way without actually explicitly referencing any of the incidents that I was, referring to. But in this video, I'm going to talk about it explicitly. So if you don't know, Jon Rafman, he's a Montreal-based net artist, like contemporary artist. He's a fairly big deal. He's not merely like a local art guy. He's part of the Montreal art scene, but he's also pretty internationally renowned. He's had shows all over Europe and the United States. And this summer he had a solo show at the MAC, the Musée d'Art Contemporain, the Montreal Museum of Contemporary Art. It was a pretty big deal for his career. But this Instagram account opened up and started posting allegations from multiple people saying that he, perpetrated sexual violence of one form or another. I don't really want to get into the actual content of the allegations or pass judgment on them. You can go and read them yourself. They've stopped posting because I guess Rafman filed a cease and desist, but they're all still up. And I'll put a link to a article in the Gazette that kind of summarizes everything that happened. But basically, these allegations had a pretty significant impact on this fairly important artist. His solo show at the MAC was canceled. He was represented by some gallery that dropped him as a client. I think he had another show in Europe that got canceled. But pretty significant impact on, I also don't want to pass judgment on the quality of Rafman's art, but he's pretty undeniably successful and important in a field that is, some consider to be the avant-garde of the art world right now. Net art. But anyway, what I find particularly interesting about this whole situation, this whole kerfuffle, is the role that this Instagram account took upon themselves to act as a kind of vigilante justice institution. They were set up as anonymous, but they had a form where you could anybody could submit allegations against people who perpetrated any kind of sexual violence. There would be no vetting of the accounts, no attempt to verify whether or not they were true or false, or even parsing whether or not the allegations really qualify in any kind of meaningful way as sexual violence. I read, I think, all of the stories that were posted, and I don't think there was any actual rape that occurred. It was all, everything that happened was some form of sexual violence, but I don't really think that there are any concrete allegations of rape, which is interesting. But this Instagram account, it set itself up as this kind of institution, which is fair because as I think most people know, most educated, most people who pay attention to these sorts of things, to social justice, whether or not they approve of it or not, of contemporary social justice movements. But I think it's part of common knowledge that the vast majority of sexual violence goes unreported, and even among the cases that are reported, the vast majority of those go unprosecuted. So there's no question that the present judicial system is not the friend of victims of sexual violence. It is not qualified and is not really willing to, you know, work on the behalf of these sorts of victims. So, and I mean, like, we shouldn't be resorting to the judicial system in any case. You know, this is a communist channel. We don't support bourgeois institutions of any sort. Um, Although, you know, in some cases, there are instances where you do want to like call the police or, you know, press charges against someone. But for the most part, you know, as a matter of principle, we do not support the bourgeois justice system on this channel. But yeah, so with that said, like it makes sense that you would want to kind of set up a like extrajudicial kind of like vigilante justice system to actually work on behalf of victims of sexual violence. But if you just think about these kinds of institutions, these like indie institutions. Like I see this Instagram account as an institution. It was trying to set itself up as a platform for anybody to come forward and you know, in the form that you could use to submit these accounts of sexual violence, there's like a field for like institutions that you wanted the post to tag in order to like try to press them to be accountable. So this like particular account was about the art world. So obviously you'd put in like museums or galleries or, you know, other artists or whatever, like people who support like whatever person is that you're making allegations against. So in my mind, it is definitely like setting itself up as an institution. And a comparable sort of institution is maybe like more well known to the Americans out there. Is like there's that shitty media men list that went around where like obviously like a bunch of men who had done sexual violence of one sort or another were collated into a list, and then like they, I don't know, some of them, I don't really know what happened of that, is just part of the common discourse, but like I guess some of them faced like career repercussions or something, I don't know. But you know, that is another form of the same thing. It's like a kind of vigilante way of doing justice in a kind of like systematic and institutionalized fashion. Like anybody can contribute to this list, and then like it metes out justice in a kind of blanket way to everybody who, you know, makes it onto the list. But just think about like how bourgeois that is. Like I'm not a deontologist. I do not, you know, categorically believe in the categorical imperative. But if you try to like think about like using the model provided by these two examples, the surviving the art world and the shitty media men, and try to like import that model into another context, you know, the kind of context where most women exist. Most women do not exist in media or the art world. These sorts of models are able to, you know, have an impact in those worlds because they are small and they are, you know, public facing. But try to like have like a fucking like shitty service worker list and see how far that gets you. It's not going to work because, you know, like first of all, these sorts of institutions, like one of their foundational principles is, you know, believe all women, and therefore they do not do any kind of vetting. I mean, I'll get into believe all women, but yeah, they don't do any kind of like vetting of the accounts. There's no attempt to like verify or yeah, verify whether or not they are true or false, or, you know, parse like different sorts of accounts and like say, you know, some things don't qualify to be on this list or whatever. It's just like you know, you submit and it gets on, and then it's in God's hands from there, or it's in the public's hands, I guess. But like try to do that in where like the majority of people live, like and work in the service industry. And I think it should be obvious that that is obviously not going to work because, like bros are going to be pranking each other and putting each other on that kind of list, and like it would quickly become like in the millions. And just like imagine, even if like some rapist gets fired from their McDonald's job, which is like a hilarious proposition, that they would get fired from like some fast food chain because of like sexual misconduct allegations against them, but they're just going to move on to the next McDonald's. Like it has no real impact on them, and no, this kind of model of doing justice, this kind of institutional model, has no applicability. It has no like universal lessons that we can derive from it. So it's fucking garbage. Like, again, I don't believe in the categorical imperative in every case. In terms of my ethics, I'm a virtue ethicist, but yeah, I think the categorical imperative is useful in doing a reductio ad absurdum in some cases. And I think it should be like this is purely fucking bourgeois bullshit. This type of doing justice is just deeply bourgeois, and there's nothing that we can really learn from these sorts of from these examples. But with that said, I don't want to be entirely negative. Like, again, like, we need some way of doing justice to victims that is not part of the like state justice system, because that isn't doing anything for victims of sexual misconduct. So how can we do that? What are we to do in this case? And I think that like in this kind of domain, there's a real reluctance to talk about the perpetrator and think about how or what we are to do with the perpetrator, and which is again justified, because like when you're talking about transformative justice, like the amount of resources, both material resources as well as like emotional and psychological resources, it's really incredible, the amount of resources that we'd have to do to make transformative justice like a social kind of universal way that we do justice. But so in this kind of like domain, in this area, people are very reluctant to talk about what to do with the perpetrator, which again is justified because there's a limited amount of resources, and generally speaking, people want to focus those resources on helping victims, recover from trauma and abuse, which is justified. But still, like my view is that if you can't think about, as an institution, as a platform, setting yourself up to be a space that is going to be meting out justice in a public forum like this account did, then, and if you cannot think, if you cannot imagine, if you do not have some principles by which a like perpetrator would be able to recover and like resume some kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say too unequivocally whether or not they should be able to resume their past status, but if you do not have any kind of principle about what is to be done with the perpetrator, then you should not be in this role. You should not be setting yourself up as like a doer of justice, because like justice involves rehabilitating people. Like, what do you think Jon Rafman or like Louis C.K. are going to do like after they've been canceled? Louis C.K. has already like resumed his career. They're not going to like internalize these kind of imposed punishments. And I'm running out of time. Louis C.K. and Jon Rafman are not going to like learn from these kind of externally imposed punishments that they are inevitably going to view as unjust because they are externally imposed. They are not verdicts that they themselves participated in, that they have internalized. They're just going to do the exact same thing that everybody who goes to jail is going to do. They're going to become resentful towards the institution that imposed this punishment upon them, and then they're going to come out of jail craftier. They're going to either be able to repress whatever desire it is that led them to do the crime that they got canceled for, or they're going to be able to do that crime without getting caught. Um, so yeah, this video has gone on pretty long already, so I'll end it here. But those are just my thoughts. I ultimately think that this Instagram account was a mistake. Like I can tell you that a lot of people in the Montreal art world, this is the insider scoop, but a lot of people in the Montreal art world would agree with that. They think that the account was just kind of misguided and vindictive, and this is not making any kind of judgments about the things that were said on the account, but just the way that's they attempted to go about doing this. Um, so yeah, that's all I'll say for now. I'll just end it here. But see you next time. Check, check. Is this thing on? All right. So I'm adding a feature to the channel, which is weekly live streams. Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will see more of this little image here, this little display. And yeah, we'll have a chance to interact in real time. I'll just, who the hell knows what I'm going to talk about? I don't have a specific subject in mind, but yeah, Sunday, be there or be square. Stop.